If there's anything I've realized after 13 years of being an animator, is that there's always something else to learn. Welcome to Professor Learns. I'm Professor Gu, your friendly professional animator, and today we'll be peeling back the layers of... hang on, actually, let me change something. Hey everyone, I wanted to try a little bit of a different approach today because on Professor Learns, we're going to be talking to real human artists. And my goal in Professor Learns is to learn not just the techniques, but also the stories and the struggles and the philosophies of each artist that we talk to. Today, we're going to find out if I can learn how to animate a proper Spider-Man web swing. This is something a lot of animators struggle with, including me. And I've always been curious what techniques animators use to make shots like this look so good. Well, today, we're joined by the animator who animated that very shot from Spider-Man Far From Home, introducing Sarp Surter, the genius animator behind so many of Spider-Man's MCU iconic moments. And not just that, but he's also worked on Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, and so much more. Hello.
Hello.
I'm joined by an incredible animator, Sarp. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's great to meet you for the first time. I've only seen your work. This is the first time we've actually spoken.
Yes.
So if you're okay with not just introducing yourself to me, but also to the viewers.
Well, first off, I want to say I'm also really pleased to and honored to meet you as well, because I've been following your channel for a long time and I've seen your videos, and you've been kind of like this person in my head, kind of like the guidance, because you're an animator and you went out and did your own thing and you started your own projects. And I think that's what every animator's dream. So I'm really happy to meet you as well.
Thank you.
For the viewers, my name is Sarp Surter. I'm a visual effects animator. I have a little bit over 8 years now of experience in visual effects movies. I worked on Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, and some other stuff that's not Marvel, but I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I always try to get into as many Marvel movies as possible. Currently, I'm working on Fantastic Four, and I have a YouTube channel where I do a lot of Spider-Man animations. I should really branch out, but when I first got to work on Spider-Man, it was a huge deal for me, and I thought now that I checked that off the list, I'm gonna be done with it. And I was not at all. I'm still not being able to reach that, so I'm still doing a lot of Spider-Man stuff. But yeah, that's me.
The Spider-Man stuff is a great segue to what we're doing today. As far as I know, you are the Spider-Man expert. And what I'm trying to do is really capture some of the amazing flow and just energy that you're able to get into your animations into something that we make today, maybe together. We'll see. I honestly, the biggest thing for me is web swings scare me. Even the rig for a Spider-Man rig, getting the web to feel easy to use, that to me has always been such a huge monumental kind of obstacle of getting the perfect look for that kind of thing. So I'd love to learn, how you're able to do things and what your tactics are, and maybe we can figure out how you do it in Maya and how I might do it in Blender.
I look at a lot of people's work of doing web swings online, and I think a lot of great animators suffer from not getting web swing right because they don't have the actual web physically in the scene. And I think that helps to know where in the 3D space your character connects. Let me first talk to you about how I set up my scene. And I think this can be replicated in Blender, but when I tried it, I had a little bit of a seizure because I'm so used to Maya. It's a bit difficult for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
So let's say if I just put a key here and I know I'm gonna swing here and the character's gonna go here. I'm gonna rotate him like that, and in the middle he's gonna go low like this, or something like this, and you get a result like this. And then I had the great idea that it should do a flip in between the swing, and then it goes like that, and oh no, it did it front first then back because it's hitting a gimbal issue. And then I also had the idea it would be so cool if it was spinning around the web. And now it's become this complete mess to figure out. To avoid this lovely problem, I have a little bit of a setup I do.
If I can I just, I have a theory of what it is. Can I try to guess?
Okay, go ahead.
My immediate reaction is that I think the best way to do it would be to set up a specific pivot point as to where the contact of the web would be.
That's the second one.
Oh, there's the second one. Okay, yeah. I got ahead of it. Okay.
I'm gonna do that too, and
okay.
I'll show you this one first, just to get the rotation stuff sorted. So I just made 3 controllers here. It's
okay.
And I'm gonna parent them into each other.
This is basically a sub hierarchy for each root bone, basically.
Yeah. So because I want to have secondary controllers, basically. Now, if I move the one above, it moves all these little ones, and then I'm gonna group this and snap it into Mr. Spider-Man's body controller here. And then scale it to like a normal size. So now if I move this, the character moves. So the reason I do that is because I will use this to only rotate in this axis, and I will use this to only rotate in this axis.
We have a similar solution to this at the studio as well. I think the coolest breakdown of the idea is you're essentially manually animating each axis.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've created your own gimbal, and like you have full control over that each axis, like three different gears. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
That's the setup. Now we can do the thing that you were excited about, I think, which is doing the locator thing.
Before we do that, let me try to set this up on Venom real quick, and you can just criticize my work.
I think your work is great. I'll learn something for sure because I struggle to use Blender.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's a relatable experience, I think, for most people, and that's okay.
I really want to learn Blender. I see like so many amazing things being done in it.
It is honestly an incredible piece of software. Ever since I started using it, I was a very big proponent, and everyone at school called me the Blender salesman. Because I was just like pitching it to everybody. It's like, yeah, we're learning Maya. What is this? Have you heard of Blender? It's so good. And it's gotten so bad to the point that I'm now officially working with Blender to create their new render engine that at the very least a render engine solution that allows for NPR stuff like Spider-Verse, which we're working on right now with them. That's been amazing. And I actually made the official Blender tutorials on their YouTube channel as well. So I got a little too deep in that, and suddenly the Blender salesman name calling became a little bit too accurate after a couple of years. I'm so deep in it now that I do all my video editing in Blender as well.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful to be able to like compose it and edit the same software that you do get renders.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many things you can do with it. It's incredible.
And your anime characters, like the 2D look of it is amazing. I think stuff like that is a bit more complicated to get in Maya, but I mean, it looks amazing, the stuff you guys do.
Thank you. That has been a big struggle for us for sure, because a lot of the things, even in Blender, don't support that idea super well all the time. There is like a couple things that we've had to do essentially to break Blender and make it work a little bit better for us, and that's been really helpful. At the end of the day, I think Maya can do it. Even base Blender can do it to a degree. So we have a custom engine called Goo Engine, where we've modified the shader nodes to allow us to do anime a little bit more easily. But even without it, like there's still a lot of great things being made. I mean, Flow was made, I think, in 3.6 and won an Oscar. So they did a great job with that. There was definitely a big movement after Spider-Verse that allowed people to really capture the energy of like, we can like paint, directly onto the models. Like we can do a style that just feels as artistic and as almost as 2D as possible, and people will still watch it. And that wasn't a belief before that. I'm hoping now that people will take that more seriously.
Yeah, I mean, the 3D shift in the industry has been like such a hard pivot. Like suddenly both like Disney and DreamWorks immediately stopped doing any 2D stuff at all. It's nice to see that the same amount of like impact is happening with Spider-Verse. Now everyone wants to do Spider-Verse, which is great. It looks amazing. The 2D blend of it is amazing.
Exactly. So this one is like the secondary route. This is like the main route, and then this one right here is just like the third one. What I'm doing now to get what you're saying, which is basically to get the pivot to be in the middle of the hip. I'm just gonna drag this down.
Sold. Done.
Yeah. I'll just bring them right back up, and then we're good to go. It's interesting because I feel like our studio works with a lot of flips as well. And this is one of the solutions that we actually came up with to solve that exact problem, because it was too difficult to really get all of the dynamic movements to work as smoothly as we wanted to as the animators were working without it. I'm right there with you. Like, this is a necessary thing. And honestly, for the rig itself, like, just to give some context on how we set it up in the actual studio, we have our custom version of Rigify. So Rigify is Blender's like rig generation thing. And they have a skeleton that only has one torso bone and one root bone and all these things. And we created a custom version that generates 3 of each. So we have 3 torso bones and 3 root bones, and we have an extra dynamic pivot that we also use. So we have all of that stuff baked in there. And actually, some people can actually, if they have the Emily rig that we were offering, it's still on our Gumroad and stuff, that has that setup as well. So that's also a really useful thing to just study if you guys wanted to look at it. But yeah, it's a necessary thing for us. So we do a lot of high energy athletic stuff. So I think that's probably why we're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, that's the setup I learned from work as well. for like working on Marvel stuff.
Okay, well, I have it set up. Rate my setup 1 out of 10.
10. It looks exactly like it does the exactly needed thing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, cool. That's what I wanted to hear.
If you go back to it now, I can throw in some buildings. So we have these like fantastical buildings to swing from.
Okay, okay, okay.
I also generally like throwing a bunch of cubes in the back of the scene, just so I can see the camera moving, because there's nothing right now to latch onto.
I'm going to flex on you a little bit. Blender has an array modifier that I can just do this and then do...
Whoa. Mind blown.
Modifiers are great. I love modifiers. There we go. And we have as many cubes as we want.
I have 9.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll get 9.
No. I think what you did is like way better. keep yours.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do the same thing where I guess it's the equivalent of it is to create an empty. I'm gonna make a locator. I'm gonna make 2 more, and I'm gonna put them inside each other again. So again, it's nothing fancy. There's all these guys are inside each other's hierarchy like this. So if I rotate this, they all rotate together.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I just do that. So if I like put the web corner here, now I can basically aim at Spider-Man, and then I can get this web length out like that. So if he was to hold that, now I can animate this to move him in a perfect arc.
Yep, I see. Is there a reason why you have 4 empties? I noticed here you're using 2 for the example.
Yeah, so what I do is I try to not actually have much values in this one. I like having translation values but not rotation values on this one.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
If I extend out the web length, then this will be the one that like is the distance from the building. And then if I wanted to swing it around, so I maintain this rotation Y is still flat now. So if I use this to rotate, now my rotation Y would be like that. Like if I wanted him to pivot around the building, I want to make it like flat to the ground, basically this rotation. If I did this rotation to match where he is, then I lost that ability to be flat now.
Fascinating. Okay, that is really cool. I'm going to be very interested to see how that manifests, because obviously you have a lot more web swinging experience than I do. So it's interesting to see like the kind of arcs that you prefer, because like the horizontal kind of like movement feels to me like something that I'm guessing you probably use a lot because of essentially the gravitational arc that happens with Spider-Man. Like he's not going to go directly up, like that. So like oftentimes he will go up and then down, and a lot of the movement is just horizontally around that axis, right?
Yeah, so like I'm thinking if the web length is the same and he's just like circling around it, there might not be like necessarily too much height difference. But then I have this web length to like make him closer and higher, so I can track his arc. And if I wanted to make him like dip in and out, I will just like work on the length.
Okay, cool. Let me get that set up real quick as well. Okay, that seems like pretty good. How would you rate this setup?
That one is actually 11 because you got the different controller looking ones, which I don't.
That's fair. I am spoiled by Blender's many options here.
All right, cool, sweet. So I'm gonna quickly move my camera. I just wanna put the camera here. I'm like trying to imagine what kind of a swing I wanna see. Maybe like something that he like swings around the corner and like jumps towards the camera or something like that.
Ooh, that seems fun. Out of curiosity, real quick, what focal length do you like to use for these kinds of swings?
I like 24 just because it gives me some foreshortening, but not a lot.
24 is one of my favorites.
I'm not very fancy with like actual cameras in real life because I just do stuff in 3D.
Yeah, no, me neither.
I have some friends, they actually take photos and they have the actual lenses and they explain me how they work. And I'm like, I put 24, it works.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, yeah, this is like the special like 18 millimeter lens. And I'm like, you don't, but what about the 6mm lens that I get for free?
Yeah. 0.1 millimeter.
Yeah, exactly.
So web end gets constrained to the main, and I'm not going to maintain offset, so it's going to snap there. Then I'm going to use the web length to figure out like where I want him, like maybe this much is fine. And I usually have the camera there to figure out. So then the web turner is going to be like how much distance I want from the building. So maybe something like that. Then I'm kind of playing with the web length and the web turner to figure out where I want him in the frame. If I turn the web corner like this, so this is basically kind of going to be my swing.
I see. Okay.
So then I would just key all these guys at the first frame, make my web corner only rotate in rotation Y. I don't know if it's the same rotation order for you.
I'm Z actually. One of the weird differences with Blender and Maya is that the vertical axis is Z for Blender and Y for Maya. I don't know why.
The height is also Y in Maya. Is it Z in?
It's Z in Blender, yeah. And the weird thing is that for Blender, the bone axes, Y is up for Blender bones, but not for anything else.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a little weird because like the shape of the bone looks like it's pointing up, and then that's actually the Y axis for some reason. But everything else is Z, yeah.
Yeah, so I keyed everything in 1 and 40, and now I'm gonna play around to see what I want. And I'm just making sure right now to not just rotate it like this because I don't want all these extra values in this controller. I'm just making sure I'm only animating rotation Y. And this one I'm only rotating in Z. Maybe here he jumped from high, right? So it was higher. So now he's like kind of falling down as he's turning.
So it seems to me like when you're controlling the height of things and you're controlling his arc, you're actually using the web turner and not the web length. The web length doesn't move pretty much at all, right?
So far, I haven't changed the web lengths, but I like changing the web length sometimes when he hits like the lowest part of the swing, you know, then I kind of want to like stretch a bit because like that's the part where like his weight like really hits in like that. So then we can also have a little motion trail on the web end.
That is where I start to get a little jealous.
You don't have it.
Blender has motion trails, but they're not editable curves, and they don't perform super well all the time.
To be fair, Maya's one isn't that great either, so I'm using a paid plugin for that.
Yeah, saved by the third-party plugins. Yeah.
Yeah. So now if I watch this, this doesn't look like the kind of thing I want. So now I'm gonna try to kind of figure out how to make this look right. So I think maybe starting a bit too high, and then in the middle here, middle of the arc, I think I can turn it like a lot more and kind of go like lower. So then we'll like rise up. I'm doing some like graph tweaks here.
You're mentioning that you're doing curve edits, but I don't see curves on your screen.
Right. So I am showing the graph editor, but because it's a dislocated window, I don't think it's showing.
There we go. Okay.
Now we have that.
Yes, it just takes up everything.
Yeah, it's okay. I definitely want this to be a little bit lower as it's turning, and maybe it can start a bit higher. So I'll key this one here, and then here I want it to go back up again. I'm also looking at this arc here because this is the arc that we're gonna see from the camera, and I want that one to be nice. Yeah, so it looks a bit slow. There's actually a cool thing that Maya added that I can show. I don't know if there's equivalent of it in Blender, but
yeah, I'm curious.
You know, if I move this here and then this, like my timing now is weird because I didn't move this key in the middle. They added this thing where like if I select this key and I make it a breakdown and it becomes this green key. So now if I move this, it always reacts to it.
Wow.
I can have like a lot of different other keys here and I can make them all breakdowns. And then I'll become the green keys and it does stuff like this basically.
Okay, you're blowing my mind right now. I need to double check something. I have no idea if this is possible in Blender or not because I've never tried it, but there is breakdown keys in Blender. I want to see if it does the thing. It does not do the thing.
Oh no, maybe it works a little bit different.
It doesn't seem to do what Maya's doing. It'd be really cool if they did. That'd be awesome. But fair enough. Another wish list feature added to the growth of potentially Blender. We'll see.
Perfect.
I'm mostly just picking your brain as you're doing this first bit, so I'm really, really curious to see if maybe I can put my head down, do a bit of animation. We'll compare notes afterwards and see if we differ in how we think about things. Does that sound good?
Yeah, this part is just like me kind of figuring out how I want this to look like. So yeah, so we can just like animate alongside.
While we're doing this, I figure we might as well talk a little bit less technical stuff. Obviously, you're a professional artist. Mm-hmm. And as am I. Everyone's artistic journey is different. And one of the things I usually ask artists is, you know, when did they realize they could do it professionally, right? Art usually starts as a hobby, and then suddenly it's like, wait, it's a job. And what was that moment like for you?
Well, it's a bit of a weird thing. The people in my family were usually like very hyperactive, and I have ADHD. And like my cousins and like our other relatives are very physical. But when I was young, I had asthma, and I wanted to move around a lot and run around a lot. But when I did that, I was having like little asthma attacks. So I had to just like sit at home and like don't move too much. And then I was like, oh, I guess I'll draw. And that started the whole, because I was still hyperactive. I still wanted to constantly do stuff, but I couldn't like do it physically. So instead, like I kept like drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and like playing with toys and like making up stories and stuff like that. To my parents at a young age, they went like, "Oh my God, this kid is drawing so much. Like I guess he's gonna be an artist or something like that." So I was lucky in that my parents really supported me from the get-go because they saw like I really enjoy drawing. But we didn't know so many things, right? I'm from Turkey. I didn't know for a long time that the animation was even like something that I could study. So growing up, I thought I was gonna be a painter because I like drawing, and
Right.
I kept like watching animation and like loving cartoons and Our Real Monsters and Rocko's Modern Life and stuff. And then saying like I'm gonna be a painter. Like, have you ever oil painted? Never. Don't like it, but I'm gonna be a painter.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it happened for me when I was trying to prepare for my high school exam to get into like a good high school. I didn't do very well on the exam, and then I was on my bike and I found fine arts high school. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. And they're like, oh yeah, we have like actually exams today. And I just joined the exam and they asked me, I was like, oh, the exam is to draw something? I was like, oh, this is great. I just drew it and left. And then with my parents, we went back into like, where am I gonna go to study? Because like my score isn't high to get into like a good high school in Istanbul. Are we gonna move to like a different place? And then we got a call like, is this like Sarp's house? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, this kid came and did an exam and left, and like we had like no way to reach him. Like he won a scholarship. Like this, do you want him to come?
Oh my! Wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow! That is, as the kids say, some form of aura farming.
Yeah, to be fair, like my high school, even though I had like most of my best experiences and like amazing adventures, let's say, and amazing friendships in there, it wasn't like the best fine arts high school in the world or anything like that.
Fair.
And
yeah.
later on, I realized every single person who was attending there got a scholarship. So like my excitement were like kind of lower. So like, oh, I guess this is like they give the scholarships to get students. That makes sense.
Well, that's fair.
Well, yeah, the second I went into high school, I started having like drawing classes as like an actual class that I have to pass, and painting and everything. And I immediately went like, this is not what I want to do. I wanted to animate. And then I found about like the animation schools, and I kind of focused on like learning how to do poses and stuff like that, and kind of pushed away coloring and all of that. So I think you could say from a young age, I always knew I wanted to do something arts related, and I was lucky that my parents supported that. But yeah, I would say like around high school, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to be an animator.
It's really interesting because, animation as a whole, at least back when I was growing up, it always felt like really amorphous. Like it wasn't really something that was attainable because like you don't really understand how it's made and like what goes into it. And I was the same way. I was like an artist growing up. I was constantly drawing all the time. And at some point, when I was young, I knew I wanted to be an animator because I loved watching animations, and I was like, I want to be an animator. And then it's this weird kind of like situation where when you draw, you're like, oh, you see a drawing, I want to draw, and then you draw because you just draw. People know how to draw. But for me, I had this weird thing where, I was like, animation, I want to do animation, but I'll just wait until someone teaches me. I guess because I didn't know you could do it at home. Like I had no idea there's anything you could do to do animation. I had no idea how it worked. I was like, I just assumed you needed like, I don't know, $5,000 of equipment and like cells and all these things. And like, no, you could animate at home. You could practice things. I mean, at that time, there was even like Adobe Flash and whatever else you wanted to do. And I had no idea. I just assumed that I had to go to school for it. And my parents were basically like, you're not going to be an artist.
Oh, short adventure.
Yeah. To be fair, they were very supportive of it as a hobby. They were like, they really wanted me to explore my hobbies and do that. But they were like, maybe consider not doing that because you're gonna starve and all these other things, which makes total sense. That was their experience with that particular industry at the time. So I was definitely in this mindset that like, okay, this is only ever just going to be a hobby, but it was a hobby that essentially completely overtook my life. Until the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore.
It's too addicting for sure. Yeah.
That's another thing too that I feel like. What is the difference between a passion?
And yeah, I think about that a lot too, because it's like if I liked drugs or alcohol or something like that to the same level, people would call me an addict. But like, because I make money from it, it's okay. Like,
pretty much, yeah. I've thought about that a lot, and I'm like, working 16 hours a day is probably not good, but I love doing it, and it ends up, paying the bills. So people are like, "Wow, you work so hard. How commendable!" And I'm like, I think there's something wrong with me, but that's okay. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. No, I really understand that too. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, animation requires like so much hard work and years of like experience and like sticking with it and all of that. But when people say like, "Oh wow, you're such a hard worker, you work so hard," it's like, that's not work for me. I'm just having so much fun. You guys are doing math, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I immediately like fell in love with it. I used to do animations in PowerPoint.
Oh,
I thought I was like so smart. Like, I would like draw something, upload one slide, and like press the button to go to the next slide, and like, wow. This is a time where there was like animation software is available. I just didn't know anything.
Yeah. No, I was like, that is one way to do it. That's for sure. That is definitely a painstaking manual process. I was imagining adding in those little text animations where you do like the bounce and stuff too. In between. It's like
my favorite font, the rainbow colored one.
Yep, that's the one.
I think the first thing I properly animated when I went to like school to animate was this like weird alien that had like, because that was the first time where I actually got like education on it. They told me like, these are the animation discs, these are the paper, you put the paper in here, you draw like one frame, then you draw the other one. Like they did like such a easy rundown of like, there's something called straight ahead, you just draw looking at the next frame and you draw the next frame, and then there's pose to pose, you do two poses and then draw the lines in between. I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then I did a weird alien, like opening and closing its mouth, and it had like one eye.
Oh.
And I immediately went like, oh my God, I did that. This thing moves. It looks like it's like breathing. And that wasn't even like what I was going for. I just wanted to see if I could move the mouth. And I was like, it's alive. And and that's it. Then you're a lifetime of like spine issues in front of the computer. And
exactly. Your first animation is like, it's like the gateway drug, and then the addiction continues. It's like, whoops, didn't mean to change my entire life trajectory, but I guess I did. Well, actually, I'm curious now that you're using Maya and you're animating in 3D. It sounds like you started with a 2D background.
I did, but I've never worked as a 2D animator professionally. I have like a lot of passion for 2D animation. I constantly try to push myself at getting better at 2D animation. But what I can do in 3D and what I can do in 2D, there's like a massive gap. But I do storyboards, and I try to do I do like the animated comic book. And I did a game which was also like 2D animated, because I wanted to get better at 2D animation.
Wow.
But but like 95% of my experience is in 3D.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I actually didn't do 2D animation before, but I have a background in 2D originally. I was doing a lot of drawing and stuff. And then I basically went directly from that to animating in 3D. And that means, I can understand the mechanics of a 2D animation, and I can draw some simple stuff. But yeah, there's a huge gap in terms of what can be accomplished, for sure.
Yeah, it's like, I feel that whenever I try to push myself in 2D, it actually makes my 3D animations better.
Yes, I agree with that.
It makes you really focus on like the end result, which is going to be like because even we do 3D animation, at the end of it, it's going to be like a video file if you're not working for games, So the result is technically still 2D, as I just realized my character wasn't on frame, so I just moved the frame down a little bit.
I'm doing my best to keep up with you. There's no way I'm going to be able to, but I have a question. I'm running into this weird issue now, which I'm curious if other animators will also be curious about, where while I'm swinging the guy, I am like the direction that he's facing is actually being inherited by the web turner. But in reality, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll see what you're doing as well, are you using the web end to rotate the character to the direction that you want them to face?
Yes. I actually made him do like a little flip. I'm mostly talking here, but I did like a little flip like this. I thought it would be like cool.
Is that a twist? Is that a twist around the y-axis there? Is that right?
Yes. So because it's inside the web end, it's just like making him rotate like this. I could have also done it on these like extra controllers, but I think I'm going to use it when I make him jump. I also use the web length a little bit for like the parts that I would be like most extended out, like around here. Like stretch it out a tiny bit and then like bring it back in.
If you were to list out the most common mistakes for web swings that you typically see, not just in like amateur work, but also in professional work, do you have like a list that you think is like the top few things that people get wrong?
Yes. One is, I mean, we're kind of doing it right now too, but we're doing it in a safe way because we have a locator connecting us to the building. But usually people try to move the character in the air, and then it really breaks that idea that it's connected to anything. So that's why I was saying like it's nice to have the actual physical web in there. But I mean, we're kind of locked right now because we constrained our character to the locator, so we're getting the same results. And then I think the other thing that I would say that I see most is people making like holding the web like a balloon, where the example you've given of like not being able to turn yourself because you can only turn yourself because your feet is planted. When he's web swinging, his feet is basically the hand because that's his only connection to the gravity. So if you want to make him like move his feet or move his like hands, it all comes from like this grip that he has on the web, and it needs to be like locked into his like center of gravity. Where I see a lot of time people like swinging like this, like holding an umbrella and like turning like that. I'm gonna start doing some poses now because I like seeing like what it's gonna end up as.
I am running into another issue which is pretty interesting. So as I'm separating out these arcs, what I found is that like if you watch my screen here, you can see I was looking at like, okay, this arc is pretty good, but it slows down at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out why, because technically speaking, this is on linear, so it should be pretty much equal speed. But because the web turner is going down so fast, it adds that additional vector. And then over here, it stops moving. So therefore, it starts to slow down overall in world space.
Yeah, it's like hitting like a counter animation issue.
Exactly, yeah. So when it comes to having movement on the web turner, things like falling from a high point to a low point there, but then still wanting to maintain like this relative speed of like turning, is this something that you were in your case, if you saw this, you would just animate the speed of this to be more dynamic and have it speed up here to make up for that?
Yeah, I mean, let me look at like how I did it in mine. I think my web corner is pretty linear, and then the web turner, there's a bit of a bend in this. I think it might be the way I thought that, because I kind of like fiddle with this all the time until I get like an arc here that I like. It's because I get to see that arc. Maybe in Blender it's a little bit difficult for you. So I'm checking to see that if that's like something that I like seeing, and I'm like fiddling with this.
Yeah, it probably just has to do with the extremity of it, because like it is just like more subtle if I just keep it something like this, right?
Also, if you want him to go higher in the frame at the end, you can also pull the web length back a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And then like I like justifying that by like maybe he pulled himself or he did something, but like that's like the next part of it. So I'm gonna like just throw in some poses because I like seeing that. It helps me plan out like what kind of rotations I want him to do, because sometimes I'll do like a cool pose where it's a little bit asymmetrical, and then I'll be like, oh, that should like make him turn more to this side or that side because it's asymmetrical. Also, this is the setup that I do to basically get me like a good clean start, and then at some point I will bake this out and like break it. But then I keep the locator setup in there, so in case if I want to change something, I can always just go back to that one.
Okay.
Do you guys have any swinging characters that you're dealing with in the studio?
Not right now, but it has been a dream of mine to do so. Yeah, we have a couple ideas for like characters that we might want to animate in the future that are just like take full advantage of the swing mechanic in like fight scenes and stuff. It's one of my favorite mechanics for sure. And when it comes to like specifically weapons on chains, that to me has always been just really, really exciting to choreograph. And figure out cool ideas for, because the physics behind it is just, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like chains too. I have a lot of like character designs that like can be dumbed down to this guy has chains.
Yep. Makes sense. Speaking of which, for those chains, did you use like a curve rig? Was that like a kind of a spine IK type situation, or?
Yes, I have this web rig and it's built on a curve, so I can like manipulate it like this, and it will give me nice curves like that. But yeah, it's pretty nice, and it's like one mesh in the center that's just like bending and curving. So I do a lot of like weird stuff with it. So right now I'm working on a Carnage thing. So I put like one slime tendril that's straight and like deformed it to this. So now I have a tendril rig. And for the Venom War, I put like chains on it. So now I have a chain rig. I'm abusing this a lot. It's like a free rig on the Kyle Figgins 3D store available online.
Yes, Kyle Figgins. Yep.
He's my animation supervisor right now in Fantastic Four.
Wow, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, his work is incredible.
He's one of those like crazy people who, when students ask me stuff like, oh, like how do I render this? How do I model this? I always say like I'm an animator and like I specialize, and it's important to specialize because like one person can't be amazing at everything. Like if you spend 20 years on each thing, you're not going to be as good an animator on the versus an animator who only did the 20 years. And then there's Kyle, which that argument doesn't work because he also rigs. He rigs so well, and he's like an animation supervisor at ILM.
There are people, those people.
I've been very lucky with the mentors I had throughout my animation career. One of my first animation teachers in Turkey was Enis Tahsin Özgür, and he worked at Tarzan, Glen Kane.
Wow.
And yeah, his drawings were just like amazing as well. I mean, he's in a different age group than us, as you can imagine, because he had already worked on Tarzan and came back when I had like started university at 17. But he kind of looked like an animation student you could see right now, but like always on their phone, always on their iPad. He would like walk to meeting rooms with like the animation disc, and I like put it on his lap and like traditional hand animate on paper, as if like he's just flicking through Instagram.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he didn't need a light table or anything like that. He would just like have fun with it.
Kids these days with their screens.
Do you do any kind of like mobile animations
on the go? No, I don't think I really have. I used to doodle a little bit on Flip-a-Clip, which was like a 2D animation software on the phone, just when I was bored, but I haven't done that in a while. And 3D is one of those things where it is kind of difficult to bring with you. Yeah. Do you have a mobile setup for that?
I use a Clip Studio and Procreate and stuff like that on my iPad too.
Yeah, I heard Clip Studio is pretty good on the iPad now, right?
I love it because it works seamlessly with the PC. So I can like on the train, I can do like a rough animation of like just like rough drawings or maybe a storyboard or something. Then I can come home in my like Cintiq and like properly clean up the lines and it just opens in the same file. It's super convenient. I'm thinking if I should do like poses and try to get like a good looking animation at the end of it, or focus more on the technical side and maybe like show how I would tackle him like letting go off the web and doing a flip or something like that.
I think one pose would be good enough for the swing itself. Like that would be generally pretty good, but like I do think letting go is a good technical thing to go over. While we're on the topic of poses, do you have some advice for me on how to pose the character like Spider-Man? I
have a general advice, but I don't know how much of it like you would need, because I know you're already amazing at
I'm not gonna know nearly as much as you, so we're gonna yeah.
Well, I always like talk about asymmetry and like making sure that like if your chest is rotated on this way, make sure the hip is rotated the other way. So don't do like symmetrical poses. Try to break it apart as much as you can. I talk a lot about like negative space as well, so I will like look at a pose like this here. And I do this thing when I try to explain how I think, like you might understand that this is Spider-Man, but an audience, when they look at it, they just kind of see this outer silhouette. So this doesn't look like an amazing pose, or like it doesn't look like Spider-Man. And it would so quickly become that if I just introduce a little bit of like a negative space in between the legs. So then I can see the leg tapering here, so that I can understand that's probably like an ankle. And then I can like show a little bit of this and like suddenly, oh, that's a feet. You know, I see it now. So I do this a lot when I pose. I always like try to think of like the silhouette and like try to create like negative spaces and stuff like that. Trying to show corners of like where the elbow is, like landmarks that would be like clear to understand the pose.
Is that something that you do often? Do you turn on the solid color view to see the silhouette in 3D?
I mean, I used to a lot. Now I think I've gotten like a little bit more used to it, and my workflow for work and my workflow for like doing YouTube animations is quite different as well. When I do stuff on my streams and when I'm like animating live, I'm kind of on like a speed run. So
that makes sense.
I try to do it as quickly as possible. And at work, there's like so much reference involved in what we do. So
right.
And I get to have this much fun all the time with like posing and stuff like that. But yeah, I like doing this, and if I like struggle with something, I'll do that. It kind of feels like sculpting when you just let like tiny bit of like negative space in between the legs and stuff like that pop out.
As a kind of follow-up to, I guess like how you are where you are now. You're working on Fantastic Four. You're working with an amazing supervisor.
Yes.
It's clear to me that I think like a lot of animators would probably love to be in your position, and I think as someone. From my position, I didn't really work in the industry. I worked at one company, which was Rooster Teeth, and then basically went off to make my own YouTube channel. So I don't have a lot of advice to always give people when it comes to how to get into the industry. So I'm curious if you have any advice for like people who are aspiring to be professionals and want to work on movies and things like that.
What I always say is to be like precise in what you want. Because I think a lot of people say like, I want to be an animator, but like then they don't really think about that. Do you want to be an animator in Blizzard? Do you want to work on Overwatch? Do you want to do like cinematics for Overwatch? Or do you want to, I don't know, animate Spider-Man in the movie? Or like, no, you only want to animate Spider-Man in Spider-Verse? Or like you want to work on Frozen? And those are all like quite different things. And, maybe you have like a setup in your life that you're happy with. You don't want to move, but you want to like make living making animations. And I always say like specify what kind of animator you want to be. If you want to be where I am, which is like doing visual effects animation for Marvel movies, then you want to be a visual effects animator. Then primarily it's going to be using Maya, unfortunately. And then you can look into which companies. For example, I work in London. I worked in Framestore here in London, and currently I'm working in Industrial Light and Magic. And you can look at the reels of the people who got that job, and I can tell you it's mostly creature work. So that's what visual effects companies look for. They like to see stuff that can't be mock-capped, essentially. But if you wanted to go into a game animation, like a game animation reel would love to see that you took like a bunch of mocap data and cleaned it up and made it into like a nice cycles. That would be like beneficial for them. Or like if you wanted to go work at Pixar or DreamWorks and Disney, Spider-Verse and things like that, they would, I think, be more interested in like acting and performance shots, which we also do in VFX as well. But it's one is like stylized animation and one is like visual effects animation. I actually have a funny story of like when I first joined the industry. I had like a long period of like trying to get into the industry, like trying hard and not happening, and like trying different things and all of that. And in my head, like I always wanted to like just animate Spider-Man, but then my instructors were like, yeah, don't do that. Like don't do a weight shift study, do like the bouncing ball study, do like a lip sync animation and all of that. And I understood that, and those are like very good advice. And I kept doing that, but then it kept not working. So I kind of like snapped and did like a super long Spider-Man animation just because I thought like I'm learning animation for like 4 years now, and I still didn't do the thing that I really want to do. And then I did it, which was like a very stylized, stepped Spider-Man animation. And at the time, Spider-Verse was being made, but we hadn't seen any trailers yet. And I was hoping like maybe I could get into like Spider-Verse or something like that. Then I sent my reel to Framestore, And then my reel had creature work in it, which was like I had like dogs and stuff like that, and also performance stuff. And then at the end, there was like a 45-second long Spider-Man shot.
Wow.
So in the interview, like they mostly talked about the Spider-Man shot, and they said like, oh, like you did this whole thing, and like you must really love animation to like spend this much time on it. We're currently doing Infinity War. We have Spider-Man shots in Infinity War. And I'm like, oh, like that's amazing. So you'd be interested in like I'd be like very interested in that. And then I got hired to work on Mowgli to only animate dogs. And the Infinity War team, the Mowgli team was so big that there was nowhere to sit next to them. So they asked me if you'd be okay with me to sit with Infinity War people. And there was like a row of screens. There's like Spider-Man mask, Spider-Man mask, Spider-Man mask, dog, Spider-Man mask, Spider-Man mask, Spider-Man mask. I was so confused because like we talked about Spider-Man all the time and stuff like that. And then the supervisor explained to me like they showed my reel to the animation supervisor of Infinity War at the time, and he looked at it and he said, I can't tell from this that this guy can animate Spider-Man in a realistic manner because he did like a stylized animation.
Ah, wow.
But they could tell I could animate the dog because I had like a dog shot. So then I ended up getting it to Mowgli, and that's the kind of thing that I try to tell people, like you should have like a specific reel for like a specific position.
Wow, that's that's a situation to be in for sure.
Yeah, it took me like another 2 years of like begging and clawing my way into a Spider-Man movie.
God. Wow. So to follow up on that, were you able to convince them that you could animate Spider-Man realistically?
Yes, actually, I did. I wish I could show this. It's like one of the best animations I've done. But in my free time using the Spider-Man rig, I did like a crazy scene with like Hulk was chasing Spider-Man. I didn't really animate the Hulk, but like he was like falling backwards and shooting a web and turning in the air, like making flips and like shooting another web and like rescuing himself. And I kept showing it to the animation supervisor of Spider-Man Far From Home. Like he was gonna be the animation supervisor, and like I kind of proved before I got in that I could do it. So yeah, that's been my experience.
To get the jobs that you want, do the jobs that you want to do on your own time.
Yes,
kind of like that.
Yeah,
gotcha. I mean, it's interesting because I have a kind of a similar story, right? Because a lot of my personal style is inspired by Monty, the creator of Ruby, and with the fighting style and the choreography stuff that I love so much, and I implemented to my own work. That's ultimately what got noticed, and I ended up working at Ruby.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I agree. And I think like if people can see that you can do a specific thing, they're gonna hire you for that specific thing. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned like I think people were telling you to do weight shifts and exercises and putting that on your reel. Is that still something that you recommend people to do, or do you prefer? Oh, just I just hyper specialize.
I mean, if you look at my tiny story there, it still is the thing that got me hired. I got hired because of that, like creature work, the dog animation I had, and not because I wanted to do Spider-Man. But I mean, Spider-Man definitely helped, and this was like something that was talked after I got in as well with that supervisor, and like he could tell that I must like really like Spider-Man because. Even though that shot wasn't like finished or like industry quality in any way, but it was 45 seconds uncut thing, and I don't advise anyone to do that. Again, like just do good animation, short, good, show your quality, not that you can spend like 3 months on it. It needs to look finished and polished.
Well, I guess between animating dogs and Spider-Man, which one is harder? Out of curiosity.
I would say for me, definitely the dog is harder because like I love doing Spider-Man stuff so much. But in general, it's also because when things that move fast is a little bit more forgiving. But just like making a realistic dog or lion lying down and then just standing up and showing like which muscle tightened and which muscle flexed and pushed, how did the weight push the rib cage to the other side and stuff like that. That's just requires like so much reference. It's not something you can do, right? Like your body doesn't move like that. You have to understand like how the animal's anatomy works. That's definitely harder.
Do you find yourself using more tools to make it work, or is it more of like a brute force, like pure creative animation reference type style?
Yeah, I would say it's like pure animation type thing. Because like with animals especially, when we work, like when I worked on Far From Home, there was so much reference from Tom Holland actually doing stuff on the set, because like he can actually do stuff, and they had like different shots of him like doing like flips and stuff. And for any actor, they will also send us like tons of reference of stunt actors doing things, and if there's like lip sync and things like that, we'll have like so much reference. But if it's like dog doing something, you can't really get the dog to do exactly that. So then it's really up to the animator to figure out how to make that actually look real.
Yeah, I know in my experience, there's been a couple things when it comes to animating quadrupeds and things that like are mostly kind of mechanical to some degree. You have to like understand, like as soon as this foot steps down, you have to understand what the other foot is supposed to do to catch that. And there's like rules to follow. But I agree that like, you know, ultimately you just have to know how do dogs move and then just use that information to the best of your ability. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
How is your experience with like the difficulty when it comes to this type of stuff? Because you get to do like so much more stylized stuff, and I would love to get more experience doing that as well.
I mean, when it comes to animation difficulty, like for me, and I wonder if you have kind of a similar experience, but as someone who focuses a lot on the physics and a lot on like the center of mass and things like that, pretty much every character, every animation feels about the same to me. Like there's like the rules that need to be followed are going to be the same in every single situation, as long as you understand the anatomy, understand the weight distribution and things like that. So like conceptually, they're all very similar in difficulty, but like when it comes to difficulty of like execution, I would definitely say that like a faster moving thing is going to be better. That's why we do a lot of fight scenes. That's why we do a lot, you know, like there's a lot of things there where they can be more forgiving. We can do a lot of really cool stuff. Like it's something that I actually recommend people. And this is not necessarily the best advice for professional work, but I don't recommend people starting with a walk cycle.
It's just quite hard.
It's very difficult. It's actually one of the hardest things you can animate. And it's interesting that people do teach that at the beginning, because I think it's a good foundation for sure. But it can also be very discouraging. There's a lot of people who start out animating. They're like, I did the walk cycle, I did the thing. And that's like my first animation. And it's always either, you know, it's like, okay, this was like extremely difficult and I'm never going to be good enough. Like this is, you know, I can't even do the most basic thing. And I one thing I just want to reassure people, like walk cycles are actually not basic at all. They are one of the least forgiving animations you could possibly do, because humans are so familiar with how walks look in real life. And it could be really easy to spot, you know, issues with it. And so I personally recommend people doing a backflip.
That's one, yeah.
Yeah, animate a backflip. You'll understand like certain amounts of like arcs and physics and mass and all these things, and you get some good reference for it. And I think with that, you'll also notice that you can get something that looks pretty good, pretty fast. And it's a lot more encouraging to say that your first animation actually felt like a success, rather than, you know, this is the best I can do and it's not great, and you know, all these things.
Well, one of the first animation exercises I had was that we were only allowed to use 2 dots, and we had to tell a story.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
When your character is a literal dot, you really end up just having to use like arcs and, you know, spacing and timing to explain like something's knocking. It's just one thing like shift and left and right. And the result of it is that you end up telling a story. And I think that's also one of those things that really gets you like, I don't really care if the animation was the best ever, but like I told a story. Yeah.
Speaking of storytelling, what was the hardest thing that you had to animate that changed how you tell stories with your animations?
How I tell stories with animation. I know the answers to like the hardest thing I animated, but
well, let's start with the hardest thing you animated. What was the hardest thing you ever animated?
The hardest thing I ever animated was, there was going to be a shot in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We were like animating this creature called like the Demon Crawler, and his whole body is made out of ribbons. So he doesn't have like a actual mass. It's just like a bunch of like ribbons. And I had the shot to make him form, and we didn't really know how that's gonna happen. So I had to like build up like a little tiny rigging system to be able to like figure out, and that was so difficult, and then it ended up being like actually quite expensive, so it got omitted from the movie. So it's never ended up being a thing. But like I had so many different ribbons starting to like form the shapes of the character's like face. You know, would come from the cheek and go do the nose curve and go in, because it had to make the face, and you had to see it the whole time. There was no cuts or anything. So this ribbon here would eventually be like the thing that turns into the eye.
Oh my goodness.
I guess that's like mostly technical thing, but that was a nightmare.
yeah. That sounds like a nightmare. And you had to rig it yourself.
Well, we had rigs, but you know, when I say rigging, I mean more like the locator setup we're doing here, because I have to construct like a system for all those like curves to end up in the right place. So
wow, I remember that creature, and I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how to even approach that, because honestly, one of the hardest things in 3D is transformation shots. I think that's one of the biggest differences between 2D and 3D, because 2D you have so much freedom to just sort of, you know, draw the shapes that you need to, combine the shapes that you need to. There's no real mass anywhere, so you have that kind of flexibility. But for 3D, you know, things are real, so to speak, right? So you have to find a way to make these real things become something else that's real, whereas in between it's not real. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it becomes like a different department's task, right? Like you gotta end up like using Houdini or something like that, and suddenly it's not like the animator's job to do it. But you wish it would be, because it's still like something in motion, and you want to make like arcs and shapes and stuff like that. But
exactly. Out of curiosity, in your own work now with the Spider-Man stuff you've been making, do you have a lot of 2D elements mixed in with the 3D elements, and are those actually done in 2D, or are they just sort of like 3D shapes?
I have a thing that I do that I can show you really quickly, actually.
Yeah.
So I really like this tool, because you can just make like shapes like this, and with horrible topology, of course. So yeah, that you could say that's like a 2D effect, you know, and I can like scale this and like stretch it and do stuff like that. And I did some of this when I was doing the Spider-Man versus Dr. Octopus animation I made, which is like a little bit of an older one. But nowadays there is a lot of 2D elements in it, but I'm not the one who's doing it. My friend Lucas, who does the rendering, he adds it in comp, and like he has a better setup in comp to do those things, because he can like isolate the character's body, and then when he adds the lines, it gets masked inside the body, which is like a level of control that I don't have in 3D.
I see. Real quick, I remember you mentioned an aim constraint earlier, and I was just curious, are you using the aim constraint to point the arm to the web corner?
I am not, but I wanted to make an aim constraint just to have the web there, and then point it to the arm, which is what I'm gonna do now.
I'm doing a bit of a cheat and trying to actually try the idea I just said. I was in IK earlier, and I was like, this arm's not gonna work out. Do you usually do FK for your arms for this?
Well, I am one of the weirdos that actually loves FK. Which is definitely not the industry standard. And like whenever at work, like someone opens my scene, they're like, why is things in FK? And you know, like I just want to have the rotation X clean in one graph, so I want to use like FK as much as I can. And I also do a lot of like frame by frame fixes, and sometimes I will end up like baking it back into IK. But yeah, I like using FK, but IK makes sense as well. So with aim constraint, this is what I did. So if you can see, there is an actual geo looking at his hand all the time. So then that allows me to like spot a frame like this, and this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. It doesn't make sense. It needs to be like that.
Yeah, to sort of verbalize what you mean, I'm understanding it as basically the web, if you were to extend it through his body, it would bisect him.
Yes, that's a really great way of like explaining. Yeah, you want it to be like the center of it, you know? It's
the center of mass. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really, really cool. I like that a lot.
How is your animation going?
I am sure it will be not as good as yours, but we'll give it a shot in just a second. I'll show you. But I'm trying to get my poses to feel a bit more balanced with this this new web setup, so I can visualize it a bit better. So come back to me in 5 seconds.
All right, we'll do.
It's actually been a while since I've animated while talking. That's one of the things that we do on streams nowadays is we sort of watch animations together. So that's been like more the focus lately. But actually animating it's been nice. It's been nice.
So how is your setup in the studio? Do you still get to animate, or are you like more supervising?
I'm definitely more supervising these days. I haven't been able to animate like more than like 1 to 2 shots per project these days, and and usually they're like the ones that are like relatively quick and easy, so I can knock them out and help the team out in a way that is significant without burning too much of my time. Because there's a lot of management happening that I typically supervise, and making sure that everybody has what they need is always like my main priority. And right now I'm actually focusing more on modeling than I am on animation. It varies per project.
It's similar to what Kyle says too, because like he always tries to do the most boring stuff. I mean, I'm not saying what you do is boring, but like you said, like small shots and stuff like that. He always tries to do that, so like the team has like cool stuff to do. And he sometimes complains like he thought like it was gonna be the opposite when he gets to be the soup. He was gonna be able to do all this and that.
Yeah. It is fun. You're basically making sure and prioritizing everybody else has the best time possible, and gets to animate the coolest shots, and then you're just like, okay, what's left for me? What's left on the table?
What's the thing that nobody wanted to do?
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're in this position, like the priority always is like, how do we get the project done? How do we get everything running smoothly, and everybody feeling motivated to do the things that they need to do? And it's always going to be the supervisor's job or the producer's job or whoever it is to take on those tasks that may burn other people out. For example, just to be frank, like you have to make sure to protect your artists. And I'm always doing whatever I can to ensure that they get to do the fun stuff, and at the end of the day, we get to make a cool video. So I'm happy to help.
I think I'm still like very attached to doing the cool stuff parts.
yeah, reasonably so. Yeah,
it seems like a good guideline to follow eventually.
Well, it won't be everyone's end goal. I'll say that much. That there's no harm in that. I think we need people to do the cool stuff. So absolutely.
I also want to like animate something other than Spider-Man at some point too, but I still like can't stop myself. I mean, I've done a lot of like different things in my channel. Like we did a little challenge where we did like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as Avatar: The Last Airbender characters. So like they all had like a different bending.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Yeah,
that was super fun. But then I keep having like more and more like Spider-Man related ideas, and I just keep saying, after this Spider-Man thing, I'll definitely do this.
What's your thought on wanting to expand? Like, what is the main motivator for that? Because with the passion that you have for Spider-Man, is there something pulling you in another direction, like something else that you're passionate about, or are you just trying to think like, oh, it's time, Yeah,
I mean, I have a huge passion of trying to do this project called Animated Adventures of Zack and Time. It's a TV show pilot that I'm trying to build.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And I made a game related to it, and right now I'm like running a Kickstarter for the comic book of it. That's like my dream, that's the thing that I really want to do. But of course, it's like an IP that no one knows what it is because I still didn't get to do it yet. So people are reacting better to Spider-Man stuff. So, I'm trying to guide people to the other stuff I do by using Spider-Man. Not that I love animating Spider-Man or anything, obviously.
Of course.
It's just such a chore for me.
Because I have a similar YouTube journey. Like when we first started animating, like it was all just, we did fan art stuff. We did even like Overwatch. We did anime recently, and then we started doing gacha games, and that's been really, really fun. Like we've been able to capture, the essence of those characters really well, and we've been able to really push like what we're able to do as a studio from that. But absolutely, like like the goal of every artist, it's like, hey, here's an original show. You guys want to see that? That's always the next step. That's always just beyond the horizon. And I think hopefully when we do get to that point, people will be excited. That's just the dream. Yeah,
I think like it's like a nice introduction to do this type of stuff, so like people know the kind of quality to be expected from you.
So as a social media artist as well, I think this is an interesting topic for a lot of animators and artists who want to build a career online, especially when you sort of are starting to juggle both. Like, what is the most important thing to consider when you're doing art for social media or when you're doing art as a business, right?
As a business, I can have like more opinions maybe, but the social media side, I would say I'm like quite new to it still. I'm still like trying to figure out. I'm getting a lot of advice from other people to like understand how to do those things. I've recently gotten to a point where like when I'm storyboarding an animation that I want to do, I'm thinking like, what is the thumbnail gonna be? That's the the highest peak I've achieved in this journey, where I actually like ask myself that question finally.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a pretty basic thing for like everyone who does like social media stuff. But it's been really fun because my work process, like when I'm doing actual like projects that I want to do, I always start with drawing cool poses and like doing a little rough sketch of like a thumbnail storyboard, and then I try to figure out, okay, like where would I put this pose? How would that work? Like for the Sandman one, I did like this Spider-Man's hands coming out of his nipples, and then I'm like, great.
Yeah,
so
funny.
How do I end up here? So yeah, that's been fun to actually like design like a pose that would also work with the thumbnail as well.
Interesting. So really figuring out, what might resonate with audiences as like, one, discoverability. So like doing Spider-Man, and then two, I guess like clickability as well, right? Like something that really gets people to decide to watch your thing. Those are your main priorities?
Yeah, I have like these are things that I'm slowly learning, but I have a lot of videos that has like so many amazing comments of like people saying like, oh my god, this is so cool, this is so great. But the view count is so low, and when I look at it, it's because like in the beginning nothing happens, and then like if you trust me for like 15 seconds, it's gonna get cool. But I know it's something to learn. It's different than what we do at like work for sure, because it's so much more about clarity at work. But I think in social media it's more about like fun. Like movies have all those like establishing shots and things like that, where I think in YouTube it's dangerous to like establish the environment first. It's
Yeah. That establishing shots don't work as the first thing. Very, very rarely, unless it's like a really cool one, But even then, it's something more has to be happening for sure. That's the nature of YouTube. It's interesting because in my experience looking at, how animation on YouTube works and just art on YouTube in general, it's always about the fact like, yes, you're making something cool. Yes, you're making, a piece of art which is really, really special to you and even to the people who watch it. But you also have to recognize that you're competing for people's attention, when you're doing this as a job. And like you need to be sure that when they make these decisions to watch your stuff, they are ultimately rewarded for it in a very easy to understand way, for lack of a better term. Like the viewer has to understand, oh yeah, like this is worth my time, and I'm going to spend my time watching this. And then you can have all your efforts paid off as an artist. It's like two different skill sets, right? So yeah, it is interesting to balance that for sure.
Yeah, I guess also like after a point you build like a trust with the audience, and then maybe you can try to get like a bit more risky with things.
Yes, exactly.
It's been really fun, honestly. Like I've been doing more social media stuff for the last 2 years. It's been really fun to like try out things and seeing what people think too, because when I animate like some Spider-Man stuff, like somebody will like comment like, is that the Neuro Decombolizer or something like that? I forgot the name of it. But I'm like, it is from that 90s animated cartoon that like some random thing I put. But like, this person got it. They recognized it, and I'm like, great. Like it feels so cool. And then like I try to put more stuff like that in it, and then like no one sees it. I'm like, okay, dial it back.
That's fair. You gotta balance your audience a little bit. You can't out nerd them too much. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to watch my animation. I'm doing my best here, but obviously I'm not gonna be nearly as good as posing as you. And Venom has also got a different shape language. So this is what I got so far.
I think that looks great, dude. You did the right thing of like choosing to do a motion that would like fit the limited time we have.
Yeah. I did my best, that's for sure. I tried to get the center of mass here, like really getting that like bisecting kind of center of mass, and visualizing that I think helped a lot. So that was really cool. Thank you for that. And then the last thing here that I'm doing is like really this kind of upward swing. And I wonder if you have an opinion on the necessities to really kick your feet forward. I kind of borrowed this from, kids on a swing set, right? When they're swinging forward, they kick their feet forward to increase the momentum as they are about to take off. And I see Spider-Man do this all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually entirely sure the exact mechanics on this, but is this also something that you do a lot in your animations?
Yeah, it's when you want to go forward, the anticipation is to go backwards first. So like when you resolve that, you end up leading with the feet. So yeah, I also did like something similar to that. I think I got a little bit carried away with my animation. I was just like chatting and like trying to do a bunch of like cool poses.
Oh my god! Wait.
This needs like a little bit of like a cleanup. It's a bit flickery right now. I'm not like super happy with it, but
no, those poses are fantastic. Oh my goodness.
So like this is the kind of thing that needs to be fixed because it doesn't like look at that line. So I was like adding those and like tweaking those a little bit. One thing that I would say that maybe will also help you is that in this part I lowered this like third controller down, so then like my rotation starts coming from like more higher where the character is, which you can also use the end bits for it. So like if you wanted to do like a swing off of it, so it's basically changing the center of gravity.
That is actually really good. Yeah, that's a good point, because when you swing, the actual pivot point is probably closer to your chest and your head area. Yeah, when you start to like pull and push the weight around, it starts to pivot around there. That's a really good idea. The reason why Spider-Man goes upside down or starts to swing his feet above him before letting go, I think, is because your hand becomes your foot, as you mentioned. So really, it's actually just putting all the weight above the hand as much as possible, so that when he pushes and he pulls like with the string before he lets go for that final burst, it's like a jump, but it's upside down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. I didn't even make that connection until now, and I was like, oh man, what a way to think about it. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a fun way to like put the gravity connection on top of him. It creates like a lot of like cool poses.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You guys do a lot of I'm sure you do like more performance and acting stuff as well, not just like action.
Yeah, the performance side of things is interesting, because a lot of our animators might specialize in choreography, and we also have animators that specialize in acting. So there are two different skill sets there for sure. I really like both. To be honest, I'm a huge fan of acting, even though I'm not really known for it. For me, I noticed like in our stuff, we really like to prioritize and push the subtlety of expression in our characters' faces. And that's been something that we kind of push for the studio style, and I think people have noticed, in our work, where we're able to get those like really subtle expressions where someone's looking and kind of darting their eyes around and just giving that subtleness of, oh yeah, that's what they're thinking, even though they're not saying anything. I don't know if you have a similar philosophy. I really like telling my animators, when you act and you do acting animations, the leading action of an acting animation is usually the eyes.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, one of the very first inputs of information that allows the rest of the body to react. So oftentimes I'll tell the animators like, okay, what are they looking at to feel this way? And make sure that when they do feel this way, what does that make them want to look at afterwards, right? And so like very simple things like, when they react to something, really scary or something like that, or something they can't believe. Usually it's like a conversation where someone says something incredulous. Like a really good acting tip there is like they are initially looking at the person. Maybe they hear something and they're like, what? And then they kind of like back up a little bit. And when they're in disbelief, one of a very common thing that people do as a reaction to that is their eyes start to dart across the person's body or across the person's face that they're talking to try to get more information. Are they telling the truth? Are they being serious? Are they crazy? And that uncertainty is what drives the feeling of disbelief to the viewer, right? So like the eyes start to dart, like do these micro movements across, as if they're looking at the other person's face very, very closely for like extra information, scanning the room, scanning the face, scanning the other characters.
I like doing the thing when I do like acting stuff. I like writing down the thought process rather than the dialogue. And I think it's the same thing that you said of like, with the eyes, you see what they're thinking. So they might be thinking like, oh, you lied to me, and their line might be like, don't lie to me, but they might be thinking, you lied to me, this guy ended up lying to me, and then you might have that like eye dart of like maybe they have like a different opinion of each other or something like that, and then the thought process might be different than the dialogue completely.
Yeah, because the dialogue is so even in real life, you know, people say things that they don't mean.
Yeah,
like the thing that they're thinking and the way that they could deliver the line can change so much based on what the underlying thing is. And I think that does tie in really well to acting as a skill, to really put yourself in the character's head and not just in their body, right?
Yeah.
So I do definitely recommend animators practice that skill, because if you're able to figure out what a character's thinking, all your acting decisions will be so much more clear.
I was animating Rintra in Doctor Strange, delivering a line while hitting like a vase in Doctor Strange's house, but the shot got omitted. But to do that, like I used my hip to accidentally hit like a thing in my house so many times that I was like getting a bruise.
Oh no!
I wanted to do the thing of like every time I did the reference, I wanted to go in like, I don't know, I'm gonna hit it. You know, like I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about like this guy talking to me and I want to impress him, and like I'm thinking of like the cool thing I could do, and then he hits it and the waves drops, and it's a horrible thing.
Wow. Yeah, the commitment to the bit.
Yeah,
because when you're in that character mindset, which is actually what you just said, is such a great demonstration of this. Like you really absorb yourself in the character's mindset that like you actually forget that you have a bruise there, that it's actually starting to hurt. It's like that priority, right? Like when you're really in the character, like you can't let those kinds of what we'll call like real life circumstances.
What are you, human?
Yeah, exactly. They can't affect you. You got to be stronger than that. Yeah, you really have to separate yourself. And like I think even as simple as like collecting reference of like, you know, like this, mocap actors have to do this a lot, where they do like a hit, you know, where they get hit in the face or something, or they have to fall in a believable way. You know, it's very easy for someone like maybe who's at home and being like, okay, I got to do a fall, but they catch themselves because they're like, oh, I don't want to hurt myself. I need to like make sure that but when you use that as reference, that's going to come through, right? Like you're going to see, wait, this person actually knew they were going to fall.
Yeah.
So they're moving in a totally different way than if they had no idea. And being aware of that, you know, as an actor, as an animator, is going to elevate, you know, your reference by a lot, for sure.
Yeah, because also I think when you animate, you know, like first thing you do, you watch it and you go like, oh, I don't like his arms, and then you change the arms, and then you watch it again, it's like, oh, like maybe the legs could be like this. So you're like giving self-reference to your animation, and the reference is the first phase of that. Like you act out and then you watch it, and in the reference you might already not believe what you're saying, because it's like it's your first pass of animation, basically the reference you shot, and you're like, that doesn't land well, so then you do it again and again.
That's a great way to put it too. Your reference is your first pass of animation. Learning how to animate your own body is a very good skill set.
Yeah, it's like that's also one of the things that really makes me like love animators. Like we're definitely shy actors, you know. We're doing like all these like acting related stuff, but like we're doing it behind the computer screen where we don't have to like show our face or anything like that.
Yes.
But then you like invite these guys into like a reference booth, and they're like start rolling on the floor and like doing stupid, cringy stuff. But I love that. I love that like shift that we have to do. And then you can like button up your shirt and like put the tie back on and like go back to your computer. Like
and nobody will ever know. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. I mean, it really is a great way to be an actor without having to show your face. Let's be real. It just also requires a level of insanity and patience. On top of that, after you do that bit, you got to do the other bit that takes 25 hours to do. You know. Yeah,
but I think like animation is in like such a perfect difficulty level that like if you don't love it, like you won't do it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met an animator who like did it because his parents told him to. You know what I mean?
Just wait until I have a kid.
Yeah.
You will animate Spider-Man.
This is an animating household. We have animated for 50 generations. You will not be... Oh, man.
I love that. And like our breaking point would be like he or she went to do Batman, and I'm like, you're not my daughter anymore.
This is a Marvel family. We told you this. Man. Yeah, one day. I think it's interesting to see how honestly art in general has changed in the past couple decades, right? Like when Disney was first starting doing animation, like before that there wasn't an animation career, like not even close, right? So like tons of people have grown up without that even being an option as a job. And now in our day and age, you know, we're seeing huge numbers of like of artists, you know, working professionally in so many different projects. And now when this generation is having kids, they're able to let the kids know like, hey, actually this is a viable career, you know, and we're getting people who are actually growing up with that knowledge that I personally, you know, didn't even really understand fully, you know. This is a job, and this is outside of even the social media YouTube side of it too, which is also expanding. Yeah
the social media side of it, I'm really, my eyes are opening to it. I always saw it like, but like I don't want to do it for views or stuff like that, and it's just I didn't understand, like it's not really about that. It's like you literally doing what you want, and you can keep doing what you want, and this is like allowing a way for that.
Yeah, it's definitely liberating, I think, in a lot of ways. At the same time, it is another skill set you have to learn. But as soon as you're able to get comfortable with those ways of thinking and that kind of goal setting that you have when it comes to running that kind of a business, it can be so nice. How's your animation coming along?
I'm gonna make him let go off the web now. I'm happy for now with this.
Okay.
I made him pivot around that hand and like change his direction into like flicking towards like that.
Oh my goodness.
Something like that I'm happy with.
Wow. That's gorgeous.
So for that, I'm sure this is also something that can be done in Blender. I'm just gonna show how to do that thing where we were talking about maintaining momentum. So this is constrained. So I'm gonna key this here. And if I was to move this and then go back to that frame, it's going to go back to here because it's constrained, it can't move. But when I put keys in, it's actually recording where it is. So I'm going to put another key here, and these are the only ones I need. So now if I go to my last frame of the web animation and break this blend parent, which is basically the constraint, my character doesn't move because I already keyed its position. The relationship between these two is basically giving me the current trajectory speed of this. So then I'm going to select this last frame here, and I'm gonna make this go in infinity linearly. If I play this now, he's gonna continue that track and keep going.
Oh, wow.
So I basically found his speed, and I can see that it's slowing down, but at least like I know the trajectory.
Okay. I am trying to replicate that. I have to wait for Blender to unfreeze first, and I'll get to that. It's been freezing a little bit. I'm on a slightly less stable version of Blender because we're working on the NPR prototype right now, and I've got that one open. So it's an older test build.
Cool. So you have like a version that no one else has.
It actually is a build that people can download. It's the NPR prototype build, which is on the website, but it has not been fully tested in every way. So it's maybe a little slow here and there.
That's a very cool thing with Blender of how like community based it is. I feel like the stuff that we're talking about today is also generally is a huge mystery to a lot of like new starters, because like animation comes from like the 2D understanding of like doing pose after pose, right? So like a lot of new people who start is just think it's just a bunch of poses, but then there's all this like technical depth into it. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yep. Which actually is a good follow-up question for you, because every animator has their own preferences. And do you find yourself animating more pose to pose or straight ahead?
Well, I do a process called layering, if you're familiar with it.
Yes.
That's the one that I mostly use. But I find that when I do more stylized stuff, it's actually not a great way of approaching it. If I'm doing something that doesn't fit the physical world, and I actually want to like stop something in air and do like a funny pose and then like run in the air and go, then I prefer doing pose to pose and like go back to doing like stepped poses and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the exact same boat. I love layered animation. That's like the most functional for especially physics-based stuff.
Yes.
To me, I see that as like the foundation of like physics animation. And for context, for people who don't know, layered animation, as far as I understand it, is the act of animating the leading mass first. So like usually it's the center of gravity for a character. So you'll animate their torso and their entire body first, which is actually what we did here. So we animated the arc of the body first, and that leads everything else. And then from there, you animate the limbs, you animate the chest, you animate the head, and you animate it down the chain in a way where like you want to make sure you're not touching the fingers until you touch the arm, for example, to make sure that you're actually getting the details that you want. So yeah, that it to me, it helps a lot to get the foundation of like the center of mass and the balance of a character down before you're going too much further into anything else. But I will say that like when people are doing body mechanics, this works really well. I find that for acting, the layered animation works a little differently. So one, your torso is not always going to be relevant. So maybe you're sitting down, maybe you're doing something else. And typically for like acting things that don't have a lot of body mechanics around them, that's where I tell people what is the leading mass, quote unquote, of an acting animation. And it's usually the eyes. It's the eyes and the head. And the eyes and the head will typically guide the rest of the animation. So I like to animate that first, actually.
So do you put like the head into like a world space to set up like that?
Yeah, I sometimes will do that. I do like doing that personally. We have like the head follow constraint where we don't have it following anything. And then we have it do stuff. And then like the body will sort of like follow in a way that kind of feels natural.
That sounds really cool. It's a cool way of doing it. Yeah, I mean, I agree with, I think both with like stylized animation and like performance pieces in general, the thing that's important is the beats, because it becomes like a really big storytelling thing in an acting shot as well. Like you want to say this specific word at a specific time. So then I really have to, like if the real world doesn't match that, we have to do that part where the line is delivered perfectly. And then you have to work backwards into physicality, which is like the opposite, like you said.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Generally speaking, I like to do straight ahead in that way with the layered. But there are times where, pose to pose is really helpful. And stylized animation is exactly one of those situations. When you want to have really nice poses that read well from the camera and have good action flow, this is particularly true for choreography. I find that pose to pose just works. It works really well.
I think also it's like a lot faster to block it, but I find it's harder to clean it. But I joined the animation jam. The Agora had like an animation jam happening, and in that, like I knew, because we only had 24 hours to animate, I knew like I'm not gonna like finish like a complete thing. I went with like pose to pose stepped approach, and it worked so well. Like I worked so fast. It's almost like cheating because I know I'm not gonna finish it anyway. It's like I'll put keys to everything. It's like pinky, yes, put a key on it. I don't care.
Yep. None of the interpolation matters. None of the curve handles matters. Nothing. None of the arcs. It's just like, oh yeah, it looks good. It looks good.
Especially it's stepped, so it just like ends like that.
So I wanted to share something real quick with how I'm retiming this animation. So like we talked about the breakdowner earlier, and we talked about Maya's cool little thing that you can drag things. One thing that I really like about Blender, one is their dope sheet is amazing. So we have all these keyframes that we can work with, and I actually don't touch the graph editor that much because it's really, really nice to just be able to manipulate these keyframes, because you can just create handles and stuff.
There's one in Maya as well, and I've never once opened it.
I've seen it. It's not as good.
Oh, okay.
There's a reason why people don't typically use it in Maya, because it's actually not super easy to use. But Blender's is super nice because actually not only can you visualize the keyframes, but you can deform them in the same way that you do a 3D object. I'm just going to scale it down this way, and I could actually turn off snapping, so it can be frame independent, and I can just speed up my animation.
You can do that in the graph too, right? In Blender?
Yeah, you can do it in the graph as well. Fun fact, this is not useful for anybody, but the graph also uses the same hotkeys for transformation as Maya, or as the 3D viewport, so you can also rotate it.
Who needs that? Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah, nobody will ever use that feature, but it is there. Because like for this, if I wanted to change the slope, I could change the slope this way. Yeah. You could argue that you could change it this way, but it pivots around a circle too, so it's not even on the same frame anymore. It'll actually just be like it doesn't really make for a logical animation edit, but it's really fun to play with.
Yeah. But one cool thing about Blender, I just saw that you had the ability to keep the things on ones, like on full frames while you're scaling. We have the same scaling ability and keeping them on the frame in Maya, but not at the same time. If you're scaling, it always goes in between frames.
Ah, interesting.
Maybe they added and it's like something that I missed out on. I gotta check out on that. It's weird, like when you get used to using these programs, you never want anything else. But the second I saw you do that, like I want that.
Yeah. One of the things I remember about Maya when I was using it that I really liked was the lattice retime.
Yeah, that's really useful.
That's been something I honestly have missed, and Blender hasn't had anything like that as far as I know. For people who don't know what the lattice retime is, it's basically like you set...
I can show it if you...
Yeah, that'd be great.
So this is the character's trajectory here, and I can select these controllers, and I can activate this, and I can be like in the middle, go like a bit higher. I want you to, drop down a bit here, you know, and then I could also do it like this, where, I mean, this feels like it might not be useful for many things, but actually if I had, let's say, if I was animating like 80 rocks that's doing the same shake, I could just move this and like warp it a bit, so like they would be still doing the same shake, but like different timings. Some of them would like end up faster, some of them would like end up a little bit later. It makes more sense to, I think, use this with like multiple objects. But this is basically what the lattice looks like.
It really allows for, I want to say the term non-destructive. I don't know if that's exactly accurate here, but it does preserve a lot of your original curves without having to go super deep into like editing everything. All right, I think I am just about done fixing this trajectory finally. You know what? I'm going to make the building smaller.
Boom! Solved. Hey, welcome to 3D.
Welcome to 3D.
We got solutions.
We always have solutions. Oh man, this is so easy. Animation's so easy.
So now I'm going to throw this guy off the rails. I'm gonna turn this off, and there's like his trajectory is working like as it should. One thing that's not working as it should is that because I had switched the center of gravity, now you can see that he's turning not where his mass is, but on the tip of it. So to fix that, I'm going to take this controller that I use for the center of gravity, and I'm gonna actually tuck that back in over a few frames. So now when we watch that, you can see when he lets go, even though like here he's pivoting from the edge of the web, when he lets go, now he's doing his rotation inside. Yeah, so I usually use a web rig, and I would like animate like a snap happening, or like like some wiggling and stuff like that right now. And this is also the reason, and also a little bit of the time reason, that I didn't really get into too much of like the grabbing of the web. And then technically I can be like, oh, like it snapped so fast. Did you see how much it snapped? And it will like,
wow.
Bonk.
So much power.
Anyway, so now that it lets go, I'm actually gonna do a pose that would like make more sense with this like letting go part. Okay, so I saw a cool pose in there, so I'm gonna try to recreate that.
When you mentioned, you said something just now which is interesting. You said, I saw a cool pose in there. Can you describe what you mean by that? Is that something you see in your mind's eye, or is that something you just saw passing by in the frames?
Well, I saw it because I'm doing this, like I'm scrolling the frame like this, and I'm looking at this arm here that it lets go, and I see it like panning like that, and I thought it looks so like locked to the arm, but what I do, and then I just imagined that arm going back, and then I kind of saw like a reaching out jumping pose in my head. So now I want to try that.
It's the animator's eye that really sees the future of exactly what the animation will look like, right?
That's a really cool way of saying it, actually, because it's almost like when I scrub, I see like 5 images, and then I can assume what the 6, 7, 8 is. Am I becoming AI? Like, did I just like train myself on my own animation?
Predictive. Yeah. We're all just AIs at the end of the day. But yeah, that is cool. I think like when people talk about art and they talk about artistry, and a lot of it really is like what is it that you're able to see that you want people to see, right? Like a big part of art is just like showing people what you see in your head. Yeah. And that's kind of where the satisfaction comes from. There's like this gap where you look at something and you're like, I see what this could be. And then making it, that's the process. Right.
I always like explain that as if I wanted to explain to you a music. I could like write notes and stuff like that, so you could maybe get an idea, but you have to like listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to actually communicate the music I have in my head to you, you have to listen. So I feel the same with animation, where like I can write in a text that like Spider-Man does a cool flip, then his like rotation continues. But it's like, to explain this, I really have to do it. And it's like a form of communication, like you said, like what's in my head to get to you, I have to do this process.
Yeah, I agree. One of the main driving forces for me as an artist is really just to be able to show people like if you guys could see what I see, it'd be so much fun. You know, we'd have so much fun. I think you guys would really enjoy it. And then I spend the next 20 years of my life and like, oh, one day you guys will see, it'll be great.
I mean, that's how it starts, right? Like as a kid, you want to do something and then you can't like explain it. And I guess the artist journey starts when you try to do it, and the second you do it, you're like, that looks nothing like what was in my head. What the fuck's going on? It's like
yeah.
And I guess I have to learn.
I should also ask you, I'm curious, it sounds to me, according to your story of walking into a school and getting immediately accepted because of how good you were, like, was it something that you were always good at, or was it something that you started out struggling with and but really was passionate about? Like, which came first, you know, like the skill or the obsession?
I would definitely say that I was always passionate about it and I was always drawing, but I was definitely not like that school I went into, even though like I love that school, it was not a school that was hard to get into. And in the same year, I had tried to get into like a very well-known school that was hiring people, also then hiring like having students in based on the drawing ability, and I couldn't get in. And then when I finished high school, I wanted to go to animation university, and there was like one university in Turkey that was like the best in animation, and there was like really world-renowned teachers and stuff like that, and I really wanted to, and I couldn't again. And my life has been constantly finding out like I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And I think when you get into the industry, you kind of realize like, oh, that's everyone's story. It's just we're just the people who didn't give up after finding out we're not good enough.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, so like thank you for saying that, but I honestly don't want like people to think that I was like amazing, and that's why like I got into that school and got that scholarship. Everyone got that scholarship.
But it was pretty cool though.
Yeah. I mean, I had that 1 week where I'm like, oh, I'm the shit, like.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that is fun. But I think it is good, you know, for people to know that, like, to put it bluntly, like art is difficult, and I think, you know, when you're really able to feel the passion behind it and knowing like, when the result of this process is going to give you so much gratification from like what you're able to communicate to people, right? What you're able to show people, like, this is how cool something could be. Mm-hmm. That to me is like one of the most rewarding experiences, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like animation specifically to me is like so hard to explain without animation, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And animation is like an amazing storytelling tool, but there's other ways of telling stories. And I love the way you said it, because not everyone says it like that, like so much cool stuff. And like, it is so cool. And like, I don't know how, like, it's not like, yes, stories are cool too, but there is a beauty in making it flip this way and not the other way. And then that's the way you communicate that cool stuff.
It's cool stuff. Yeah, it is cool stuff. Question for you. What were your biggest inspirations outside of Spider-Man that made you realize like, oh, there's like so much cool stuff out there, you know, that can be made? Like what sparked your imagination the most?
Actually, it would surprise you that Spider-Man wasn't, like, the comics was a huge inspiration to me, of course, but I really wanted to animate Spider-Man because I wasn't happy with how it was animated.
Right, yes, that animator's eye.
I had opinions. Yes. Day 1, 7 years old. Excuse me.
That's how you know. That's how you know. You got that animator's eye. Yeah. You've got the potential to show people.
But I would say like Amazing Spider-Man 2 is insane in animation quality of like the things they did there. and like Spider-Verse also, like those movies have really gotten like the Spider-Man animation to a level. But my main inspirations was that the things that really got me into like animating specifically, not specifically animating Spider-Man, but Tarzan.
Yep.
Because I think Spider-Man should look like that.
Yeah, true.
And Incredibles, the first Incredibles movie, those were like huge ones for me. And you know, and I also grew up with like a lot of TV shows, and I love Nickelodeon shows. Yep. And I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say inspiration. It's still an inspiration, but I wasn't young when the show was out. But Avatar: The Last Airbender is like,
oh, yeah.
They introduced a whole new language. It's like everyone who watches that show can now watch me doing like a weird punch thing and go like, that's earthbending, that's firebending, that's waterbending. And like to educate an audience like that, to be able to pinpoint, and it's just pure animation, you know, they're not saying, I'm now doing a fireball. Look, you understand because it's red. It's just the way they do it, and it's like, that's firebending. And that's amazing. Like I'm speechless to that, honestly. I love that show so much. Korra as well is like great, especially season 3.
Avatar: The Last Airbender was probably one of the biggest, I would say, revolutions in animation in the West, where we were really able to see something so diverse from everything else and still land so iconically in like pop culture. It honestly, as someone who loves martial arts, you know, I was just like, that's, you know, this is one of the best shows that can really capture it. Like it really is. It's one of the few, and especially in like Western animation, like it's got such an amazing foundation in like all these different cultures as well. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and I think like it's been proven time and time again. Like it's like for the music you have to listen to it, and for the animation you have to see it animated. And that show just doesn't work if it's not animated. It's gotta be animated.
It's so true. It does have to be animated. Yeah, there is just those ideas that don't work.
Yeah.
unless you really just make it all from scratch. which is what animation is as well. Like I think people don't realize that sometimes, because like they're used to live action and like other things, and even VFX can sometimes feel like a little bit like free, you know, like it feels like, oh, this just like something that gets made that to help with the, well, in reality, you know, before animation begins, there is nothing. there's nothing on the canvas. There's nothing at all. Like 2D animation is, in particular, is quite literally just someone's imagination on paper, which when you think about it is like, I mean, like how can you possibly find anything else that can convey someone's ideas and mind's eye as clearly as that, right? It's incredible. I love animation.
Yeah, same.
In case that wasn't clear, you know, it's on the same page.
Yeah, I also like love anime as well. There's like a lot of anime that I grew up with as well. I think like my favorite anime would be Tengen Toppan Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann, yes.
And I love saying the full thing every time just to get like the what did you just say out of like people.
It's like what?
Yeah.
Sorry, say again. You're a nerd? What? Yeah, I know. I one of my favorites as well. Actually, I describe it as like the most motivating show. Like you'll watch that and just be like, I could do anything if I want to. This is great. I love this show. This is wonderful. So outside of the amazing animation, also just great for your mental health. If you ever feel down, you know, you're just like, let me just watch one of the scenes again.
Also the shock value at like episode 6, and I won't spoil any further. That's quite old anime, but
yeah, it's old now, but you know, people still deserve a chance to see it. No spoilers if they can, because it is absolutely worth it. You really don't expect it to hit the way that it does from when you first watch it, and when it hits hard, and then you can't put it down after that. It's amazing. How's your animation coming along?
I did get that post that I wanted to do, which was something along the lines of this. You know, I wanted to go with the idea of like the upper side of the body taking the center of gravity and kind of leading into a leap like that. I mean, there's still a lot to fix, but as you know, there's no end to this. It can like go on forever.
That's got so much energy and power to it. I love that.
The end is kind of like wee, just like flying.
Yeah. We have liftoff. It's like, yeah. I've got a quick question for you. The energy flow that you have in this is fantastic, and I'm curious. There's a speed up there right at the very end of that arc when he comes off the web. And I'm curious, is that speed up in your like web corner control, or is that speed up in your web turner control? Like, where's that curve coming from, out of curiosity?
I think web corner, this is pretty senior. I think it's this part like dipping in a little bit, like because it slows down on this part, and then I'm like dipping it in here. So it's more that if you look at it from the perspective, it's that the speed up is happening in like translation up more than more than the actual arc.
The hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse. Yeah. Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. Thank you. I paid attention in class. It makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was like pretty much it's interesting because that's the exact opposite problem that I was having, because I was like, I had it speeding up too much at the beginning because of that exact diagonal. But you're taking advantage of that really well here. That looks awesome. Let me show you what I got. It's not nearly as cool. As a director, I like to do camera cuts, so I did this, and then I did a camera cut for where he might land.
Yeah, I think that's like a great blocking, man. Like
I pretty much didn't do any posing. I was busy, enjoying the conversation. But we'll get to that eventually, and we'll have something that feels like, okay, yeah, he's posing now, but he's right now just got his hand actually pointing at the. Whoopsies. Let me get that. There we go.
It's the Spider-Verse. This is that kind of. Yeah. It's like, welcome.
he's giving like an infomercial. It's like, behold, like,
check out
for only $9.99. Like,
oh wow, how fast were you able to do that? Is that inside Blender, or was that?
Yes, it's in Blender. If I just hold the letter D, I can draw.
And is that grease pencil draw?
It is grease pencil. It's technically an annotation, so it just doesn't render. So you need an actual grease pencil object to render.
I just love how quickly because I also like help teaching animation as well, and it's like the fact that you don't have to transition and you can just do it there is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. That's my animation. That's your animation. Clearly much more smooth and much more energetic than mine. But I think. I learned a lot. I think the biggest thing was the ingenuity, I would say, of how you're setting this up is such a great way to take advantage of like curves and math, because like that's really what it is. Yeah. Like you're able to not only control each axis separately, which is like basically taking the computer apart and putting it back together again, right? Which is cool. And then I really like how you did the linear extrapolation off the web just by adding those two keyframes with a linear extrapolation. It blew my mind. That was really, really cool. Are there any exciting projects that you want to promote and tell the viewers, like, you're working on this thing that's coming up?
As you might imagine, maybe you can take a guess that I'm doing a little bit more Spider-Man stuff.
Oh!
Trying out a new thing here.
But yeah.
I recently made a Sandman animation, and I have like a Agent Venom animation coming up soon. And if anyone who's interested in my more personal IP, which is the Animated Adventures of Zack in Time, they can go to zackintime.com to see the webcomic, the arts on it, and storyboards, and the game, which is called Zack and Fight on Steam. If anyone's interested in that exists. And yeah.
Okay, let me just adjust this thing back. And okay, I just learned so much from Sarp just talking to him, and hopefully you guys did too. And if you want to see more Professor Learns, let me know what you liked and didn't like about it down below, or who I should learn from next. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep animating.